Hi, Holomouse listeners. My name is Joaquín Donoso, and I'm a second grade F student. But I am also the presenter of the podcast, and today we are going to talk about the book Mouse. In first place, Benjamín Ugarte, a second grade F student. He is going to tell you a resume of the book, so that you better understand the whole context of the podcast. Secondly, we have an expert on the members of the Vladek family. His name is Pedro del Rio, another student from second grade F. He is going to tell us a little bit about Vladek's family members. Later, I am going to talk about the personality characteristics of Vladek, Artie, and Anja. And last but not least, Augusto Ossandón, a second grade F student, is going to talk about the jobs of the characters from Mouse. Let's get into Holomouse podcast.
Hi, my name is Benjamín Ugarte, and today I'm gonna give a little presentation to the book Mouse. Mouse is a graphic novel, serialized from 1980 to 1991. It depicts Spillman interviewing his father about his experiences as a Polish Jew and Holocaust survivor. The work employs postmodernist techniques and represents Jews as mice, Germans as cats, and Poles as pigs. In 1992, it actually was the first graphic novel to win a Pulitzer Prize. In the frame-tale timeline in the narrative present that begins in 1978 in New York City, Spillman talks with his father Vladek about his Holocaust experiences, gathering material from the Mouse project he is preparing. In the narrative past, Spillman depicts these experiences from the years leading up to World War II to his parents' liberation from the Nazi concentration camps. Much of the story revolves around Spillman's troubled relationship with his father and the absence of his mother, who committed suicide when he was 20. Her grief-stricken husband destroyed her written accounts of Auschwitz. The book uses a minimalist drawing style and displays innovation in its spacing, structure, and page layouts. A 3-page strip is also called Mouse, that he made in 1972, gave Spillman an opportunity to interview his father about his life during World War II. The recorded interviews became the basis of the graphic novel, which Spillman began in 1978. He serialized Mouse from 1980 until 1999 as an insert in Raw, an avant-garde comics and graphics magazine published by Spillman and his wife, Francois Moldy, who also appears in Mouse. A collected volume of the first 6 chapters that appeared in 1986 brought the book mainstream attention. A second volume collected the remaining chapters in 1991. Mouse was one of the first graphic novels to receive significant academic attention in the English-speaking world. Most of the book waves in and out of the 2 timelines. In the frame tale of the narrative present, Spillman interviews his father Vladek in the Rego Park neighborhood of New York City in 1978 and 1979. The story that Vladek tells unfolds in the narrative past, which begins in the middle 1930s and continues until the end of the Holocaust in 1945. In Rego Park in 1958, a young Art Spillman is skating with his friends when he falls down and hurts himself, but his friend keeps going. When he returns home, he finds his father, Vladek, who asks him why he's upset, and Art proceeds to tell him that his friends left him behind. His father responds in broken English, "Friends? Your friends? If you lock them together in a room with no food for a week, then you will see what it is, friends." As an adult, Art visits his father, from who has become estranged. Vladek has remarried to a woman called Mala since the suicide of Art's mother Anja in 1968. Art asks Vladek to recount his Holocaust experiences. Vladek tells of his time in the Polish city of Szczecin and how to marry into Jenna's wealthy family in 1937 and moved to Sonswick to become a manufacturer. Vladek begs Art not to include this in the book, and Art reluctantly agrees Anja suffers a breakdown due to postpartum depression after giving birth to their first son, Richał, and the couple go to a sanitarium in Nazi-occupied Czechoslovakia for the recovery. After they return, political anti-Semitic tensions build onto Vladek. He's drafted just before the Nazi invasion. Vladek is captured and forced to work as a prisoner of war. After his release, he finds Germany as annexed Sosnowiec, and he's dropped off on the other side of the border in German protectorate. He sneaks across the border and reunites with his family.
Thank you, Benjamin. Now, Pedro, tell us a little bit about the members.
Hi, my name is Pedro del Rio, and I am here in charge of talking about the characters. And I will tell a little opinion about them. So, here we go. There are three main characters that are Vladek, Anja, and Artie. But they are all of the same family. So, let me start talking a bit so you can get to know them. So first, I am talking about Vladek. As he's the father of Artie, I feel like, emotionally talking, he's really strong character due to the things that he lived. For example, being a survivor of the Holocaust, or Anja's, his wife, suicide. This affected him during time, and I think that was the principal situation and reason that transformed him into the problematic and mentally affected person they showed us in the book. Or Mouse, at least. He's still a good father to Artie, which is very admirable. Now, I would like to talk about Anja's character, because I think that she's very empathic to talk about. Anja, as well as Vladek, survived the Holocaust and, obviously, was the mother of Artie. But, unfortunately, she could not be like Vladek and ended up committing suicide. This was a very hard death affecting Vladek and Artie. Really hard psychologically. This, in my opinion, was one of the most important moments for this family. She suffered depression and anxiety. But the breaking point for her was the death of Richu, his son, during the war. This was so sad for the readers. It really affected us. It was an incredibly dedicated moment and delicate, even for this dark and raw book. Not just for having mouse characters means that it can be cruel. That's nothing released about. I think that is something all the readers need to know. And my final opinion, at least, about this problematic family is obviously Artie. Arthur had the idea to write a comic about his father's experience during the war. His father was good with him, and his mother wasn't there. But he had lots of feeling problems. So, as the story goes on, he started caring more about his father and stretching bonds again after many years. I like the way the real writer reflects in Artie in the book. It's a really good detail, and that Artie and Vladek started again a relationship son and father. Give the readers a really happy ending, at least to all these family problems. Now I finished my part. Thanks. You should go on.
Wow, that was an interesting information. But now it's my turn. But first, let me drink a little bit of water. Okay, here I go.
Hi everyone listening to Holocaust. My name is Joaquín Donoso and I came to this podcast to talk about the personality characteristics of each character from Mouse from chapter 1 to 3. In first place, we have one of our main characters, Vladek, Archie's father. A Polish Jew and Holocaust survivor, Vladek has a lot of memories of fear, suffering and loss that until beginning his interviews with Artie he has not addressed in years. As a young man, Vladek possesses a shrewd intellect and terrific interpersonal skills, which help him navigate perilous situations throughout the war. Though age does not compromise his intelligence, Vladek becomes neurotic, stubborn, and miserly during his later years. Characteristics that those around him, especially Artie, find hard to bear. Pavel, Artie's therapist, believes that they are expressions of the guilt and sadness Vladek feels about surviving the Holocaust. Vladek is a loving father to Artie, whom he adores, and a devout husband to Anja, whom he misses terribly after her suicide and thinks about her constantly. The second character that I'm going to talk about is the second of our main characters, Vladek's son, Artie. Artie was a young Jewish American man who works to write a comic book about his father's experience during the Holocaust. Artie has feelings of anger and resentment toward his parents, Vladek and Anja, as well as feelings of guilt. Though self-centered and often unkind, Artie is also curious and introspective. We can see this in all the times that Artie asks Vladek to continue telling him the story. He is concerned about pursuing his work in the most ethical way possible and thinks deeply about his own relationship to the stories Vladek shares with him, as well as his responsibility to his family and the larger Jewish community in telling those stories. Vladek and Artie have had a tense, difficult relationship since Artie's childhood, which was only exacerbated by his mother's suicide about 10 years before he began work on Mouse. But Artie develops a more generous and loving attitude towards Vladek as they progress through hours of visits and interviews. The interviews and conversations allow Artie to understand the forces that shaped Vladek's life and to forgive some of his shortcomings as a parent. After telling you about the two main characters, it's time for one of our secondary characters, whose name is Anja, Vladek's first wife. Anja, Artie's mother and Vladek's late wife, a sensitive and highly intelligent woman, Anja survives the Holocaust but dies by suicide in 1968. Though she suffers from severe depression and anxiety throughout her life, illness whose effects are exacerbated by the trauma of the Holocaust, and especially by the loss of her son Ritu during the war. Anja draws strength from her relationships with her family, which allows her to endure the darkest moments of the war. She develops affection and loyalty in many people, and especially in Vladek, who continues to adore her for a long time after her death. Thank you for listening to the personality characteristics of Vladek, Artie, and Anja. Let's continue with Holocaust.
Oh my god, I am amazing! Let's continue with Augusto Ossandón. Start, please, in 1, 2, 3, now.
Hello, my name is Augusto, and on this part of the podcast or segment, I'm going to talk about the jobs of each character in the book Mouse. Vladek's Spiegelman. When the Germans invaded Poland and conditions were for the youth, Vladek moved easily from his role to successful businessman to a black market trader to a jack of trade, where a talent for skilled labor and disuse when necessary, when others despair his a voice of hope. Ronald Silva Perez, with his Anja's father, who were referred to as father-in-law, the happy owner of a hosier factory, Marcel Berber is a devout family man. Arthur, or Artie Spiegelman, a young Jewish American man who worked to write a comic book about his father, Vladek Spiegelman experience during the Holocaust. Vladek, he sent to Auschwitz but survived the war and later became an engineer and a college professor.
Hisechi. Who is Hisechi? Is conducting business on the Soviet black market. Hong Kong. He is product supervisor at the sugar repair shop in the Radula ghetto. An honorable man compared to the Shemin Haskell. Haskell Spiegelman is a chief of the Jewish police in the Radula ghetto. Milos Spiegelman is product supervisor at the sugar repair shop in the Radula ghetto. Pesach Spiegelman, his most significant involvement centered on a attempt to sell cakes to the inhabitants of the ghetto. Merle Lukowski is the janitor at Anja's father's house. Murskauka, he is the owner of a small farm outskirts of Sosnowiec. Vladek Capo, he is a police supervisor at the concentration camp. Pavel is arts psychiatrist. Gittel is Vladek's boss at the teen shop in Auschwitz. Now I'm going to talk about another thing about a quote in the book. Artie and Vladek bones over his side of the story. This quote means that thanks to the story, Vladek tells Artie the truth of them were able to reconcile things. Artie better understood the reason why Vladek could not be very present as his father. It can be said that he empathized with him for all the things that he had happened in the war, the concentration camp, the death, his loved ones, and his friends, the difficulty he had to pay for being a Jew with the Nazis and others. This can be very tough. The book as Artie incredibly understood his father and realized everything he had to go through to be able to be there at that time telling the story. Now I'm going to talk about a quote that I found interesting and I found in the book. Even thought everything was very tough and it's already very tough. We are happy only to be together. Artie, understand the situation that his father was. He has happened before, and now he understands more, and now they are happy to be together, and now they are like in love.
Whoa, that was a lot of information in only 4 minutes. Thank you, Augusto.
Thank you for listening to Holomouse Podcast. Stay tuned for our next chapters. See you later.